But yeah, another. Well, no, the Ryan Garcia thing was obviously fact, but a rumor that broke last week was about Canelo's next opponent. Now, it's not apparently going to be the winner of Bivol and Beterbiev. It couldn't be really because Canelo likes to fight in September, and their fight got delayed, so they'll also be fighting in September. It's not going to be David Benavidez, as Canelo has shown, well, an actual aversion to fighting him. It's not just that he doesn't really fancy it. He seems to really, he seems to be bottom of the list, if anything. But Chris Eubank Jr., a somewhat surprising choice, despite a career best win last time out in the revenge victory over Liam Smith, has come to the top of the list, it seems. Reputable sources have reported this. It seems likely he will be fighting Canelo in September. I'm struggling to finish this segue without laughing. And that's no disrespect to Eubank Jr. He's a very accomplished fighter, but seems levels below Canelo. And the people that we've wanted Canelo to fight as well. Eamon, what did you think when you heard this? It's kind of more than a rumor. It's a report from a reputable journalist.
Yeah, it's always Chris Eubank Jr.'s career is so kind of strange and mysterious as to the way he operates, some of the decisions he makes, some of the opportunities he gets, some of the direction he takes with not wanting to win a legitimate world title and looking for those big nights, those big stages that he feels he deserves much. This is a guy who started off in the shadow of his father, but really has kind of broke away from that. But some of the hardcore boxing fans will still equate that to him because he hasn't won that world title. He hasn't fulfilled some of the potential that they feel he could have fulfilled, and with the options potentially there as well too, off of the back of some real good wins and a comeback win as well too, where there were doubts over Chris Eubank Jr. in the state he was in and the position he was in his career after the defeat to Liam Swift to come back and make it so routine the second time around. And must be so disappointing for. I remember speaking to Liam Williams. I said, like, when you lose to a fighter, you want to see them do well, right? You want to see them make something of that win. And he was like, yeah, kind of extra pisses me off because he hasn't done anything with that. He takes these long lulls out of his career to do whatever he does. I know he likes poker, and he's been pictured, hasn't he, playing poker with Neymar and Ryan Garcia as well. Um, but yeah, he gets these opportunities, and look, put just saying it straight, doesn't deserve the opportunity with Canelo. Hasn't really kind of put himself in the frame for that fight. Probably should have gone for, especially when the middleweight division is a lot more open than it has been in recent years. There is an opportunity for Chris Eubank Jr. to really be live in a fight where he could win a world title, and he would answer for a lot of people, a lot of questions as to his desires and his credibility as a top level fighter in the sport. But that's not what he wants. Clearly, he could have taken to, and this is where also it factors in too, because the other option for him, which makes it more strange, I should say, was the Hamza Shiraz fight, and that was going to be in Saudi Arabia. So it'd also be for a lot more money, or a lot of money. Can't quite equate how similar the paydays would be from Canelo and Hamza Shiraz, but he's made the decision to go for Canelo. I guess in the wider scope of things, the idea of taking an L from either is a lot more softer or fall with it being to Canelo than it would be from Hamza Shiraz. So I guess that's the decision making there. But I think Chris just wants that. I think Chris likes that limelight. He likes being around the poker table with Neymar Jr., Ryan Garcia, Dan Bilzerian, and you keep yourself in that kind of conversation with the big nights and big fights against the likes of Canelo. Does he have a chance in the fight? Look, no, not really. I don't write him off totally, but I don't really favor him at all. Is he catching a Canelo on the slide? Canelo's definitely on the slide, but I don't think he's catching him by any means. But it might make it a closer fight. But this is still a fight. If he does land it, a big opportunity for him, but one that I don't see as a fruitful endeavor other than lining his pockets as a prize fighter.
Yeah, I mean, Eubank Jr.'s decision here is pretty clear, isn't it? It's the old kind of Amir Khan choosing various fighters over Kell Brook at different parts of his career because he can afford Eubank Jr. a loss to Canelo, and that Hamza Shiraz fight for a lot of money in Saudi Arabia will likely still be there. But also, if we're giving him the benefit of the doubt, the Canelo fight will be for a world title or several world titles, whereas Shiraz at this stage probably wouldn't. So there is that to take into account as well. The Keggy says it's just a waste of time for Canelo. As bad as Edgar Berlanga is, I'd rather Canelo fight him than Eubank. Same. DB Coupon, back end of Canelo's career CV wise is horrific. Gets a free pass. Casual fans tune in no matter who he fights. How does Eubank Jr. always have the last laugh? Fair play, but a mismatch. The Keggy thinks Hamza would destroy Eubank. Young Jesus says Canelo versus, is it Young Jesus, Young Jesus? Maybe you can let us know. Canelo versus Liam Smith 2 would be better, prof. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Eubank versus Liam Smith 3. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Grim Reaper says Eubank should be fighting Alim Kanuli. Janibek, of course. Yeah, again, wouldn't mind that fight. Wouldn't make Eubank a massive underdog in that one, whereas I do make him exactly that against Canelo. Even a Canelo slightly on the slide, we don't know if Eubank Jr. is not on the slide, do we? That's the thing. Because he's had his career best victory last time out, it suggests he's not, but we don't know how far Liam Smith slipped. And more importantly, we don't know how much, crashing the weight has done to Liam Smith ahead of that rematch. If the real Liam Smith was in the first fight, but not the rematch, then that tells us a lot about Eubank Jr. as well. And perhaps we'll never know. Keggy says, I guess he would rather get beat by Canelo than a young contender in Hamza. Yeah, exactly. I don't blame Eubank Jr. for a single second in taking this fight. He gets an opportunity at several world titles. He gets loads of money. And effectively, he can't lose because no one expects him to win the fight. So even if he puts up a good fight, if he goes the distance, because until the Liam Smith fight, he'd never been stopped. If he goes the distance with Canelo, and as we've seen in recent times, going the distance with Alvarez isn't an impossibility. If he makes a few rounds competitive, or if he even wins a few of them, if he loses to Canelo, say 116, 112, something like that, he comes out of it with probably more credibility than he had going in. As long as people aren't talking too much about Canelo's slide and more about Eubank's great performance, dogged, underdog performance, especially if Eubank makes the fight, if he pushes Canelo, if he's, the one coming forward, but Canelo's just a bit too classy for him, which I could see happening, then he comes out of it with more credibility and he can translate that, into other big fights, whether it's here against the likes of Shiraz or in the US against the likes of Janibek or Munguia, for example. So it's a great move for Eubank. Don't blame him at all. Don't think he's got much of a chance of winning at all either. It's more Canelo. I place the blame fully with Canelo. It's not like he's got a promoter who picks and chooses. Canelo is his own boss. He chooses who he wants to fight. He's been quite vocal about not wanting to fight Benavidez. So, yeah, Canelo seems to think he's at a stage now, and I guess he is if he gets away with it, that he can fight whoever he chooses, and the fans have just got to lump it. I would like to see one of the best fighters of my generation and one of the best fighters pound for pound in the world today test himself a bit more. Very much so. And yeah, there's not a lot of options aside from Benavidez, who a lot of us would like to see him fight. But what about a Janibek? What about Edgar Berlanga? There's a few out there who have got more to offer in that regard than Eubank. I know Eubank's a relatively big name, particularly in the UK. I'm not sure how big a name he is in the US, which is where the fight will take place. Yeah, I mean, it's not a fight I'm in favour of particularly. I mean, Eamon, what we talk about like 50-50 fights. What would you say this one is?
Yeah, definitely not a 50-50 fight. Probably an 80-20 fight, if I'm being courteous and polite to Chris Eubank Jr. But the other thing, though, is outside of Benavidez there, well, no, even because Berlanga brings up Puerto Rico versus Mexico aspect to it. But just in terms of like the press conference and the cell kind of thing, Chris Eubank Jr. does have, I think the kids these days are saying aura about people. Chris Eubank Jr. definitely does have an aura about him. For me, he sells a fight. Like whenever Chris Eubank Jr. is on, and look, he's not like his father, but he has his own level of charisma and his way of speaking that draws me in to want to watch Chris Eubank Jr. for the level of talent that he has and the way he's been able to promote. I think he's absolutely like clocked this boxing game completely. He's as Eddie Hearn would say, he's swum the channel and come back and really kind of ran with it here. But and that's what kind of over, I think more so from a British perspective, that's what kind of makes me want to see that over Berlanga. And Berlanga's record for for me, it's lacking those real big wins, those real big names to really kind of set up that Canelo Alvarez fight. The fight that Canelo Alvarez should be taking, it goes without saying here, but I'll say it anyway. It should be David Benavidez. But the problem is, with the wealth over in Saudi Arabia and the want from Turkey Al Sheikh to make that fight, and the want of Hearn and whatever to make that fight, Canelo Alvarez, they can't drag him into the ring and get him to fight Benavidez right now. So that's out the window. So what else really is there
What
for?
about Crawford? That went quiet quite quickly. Was that never a possibility? Because I don't think Crawford will beat him, but I'd rather see Crawford than Eubank. I wouldn't make it 80-20.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I don't think that's, although it's gone quiet on that front, I don't think it's gone quiet on that fight. I think that's definitely a fight that the Saudi Arabians want to make. I just don't think, I think that they'll probably want to have Canelo over in Saudi as a first fight and then lead into that Crawford fight afterwards. But I'm not sure. Like, I mean, Crawford's still got business to attend to with getting up to that weight. So I think that's probably the reason for the wait for that fight being immediate as opposed to a little bit of time taken. So we'll see. And look, that Madrimov fight is a real tough fight, a real good fight for Crawford to have coming off the back of the Errol Spence win. So a lot to be determined yet for Terrence. But outside of that, like, you know, the options there for something big, the options there for something entertaining. I don't think we're really there. So that's where Chris Eubank Jr. steps in and sells. And Canelo can see this as, look, another big payday with not a lot of risk attached to it. I think Canelo kind of understands as well, too, where he is in the game, where his level is, that he isn't at his peak anymore. So doesn't want to lose. And if he's going to lose or have that real life fight, then it's got to be of someone who's worthy of passing the battle, taking the baton from him. And it's got to be for a lot of money as well, too.
I'm glad to see that in the chat, Young Jesus has clarified that that is how it's pronounced rather than Jesus. So I apologise for getting it wrong about 20 times before that. And he also says, seeing how Canelo dropped Jaime Munguia with only a 3-punch combo, Chris don't stand a chance. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Canelo decline has been quite as pronounced as a lot of people have made out. I think he often fights within himself and fights at his own pace unless he's pushed beyond it. And, you know, maybe if we get the Chris Eubank Jr. of old, he will push Canelo to a higher level. But that spells bad news, ultimately, for the son of a legend. But we shall see. But that's not until September, if at all.